But we begin with this news breaking courtesy of a big story in the Washington Post. U.S. intelligence officials formally briefing Bernie Sanders the Russians are meddling in the Democratic side in the 2020 primary and trying to help his campaign.
The Washington Post broke the news today that U.S. intelligence officials have told Senator Bernie Sanders that Russia is once again trying to, quote, help his presidential campaign as part of an effort to interfere with the Democratic contest. The Mueller report revealed that Russia did the same thing 4 years ago when it was helping the Bernie Sanders campaign and the Trump campaign. The Mueller report found that Russia used social media to help the Sanders campaign against Hillary Clinton and to create dissension and division among American voters.
President Trump also has been informed about this. Late today, Bernie Sanders addressing the news.
I go to many intelligence briefings, which I don't reveal to the public. Mr. Putin is a thug. He is an autocrat. He may be a friend of Donald Trump's. He's not a friend of mine. Let me tell Mr. Putin, the American people, whether you're Republicans, Democrats, Independents, are sick and tired of seeing Russia and other countries interfering in our elections. The intelligence community has been very clear about it.
The Washington Post reports that President Trump was informed some time ago about Russia's interference to help the Sanders campaign. And today, before the Washington Post broke the story, President Trump hinted at it.
The do-nothing Democrats, they said today that Putin wants to be sure that Trump gets elected. Here we go again. Here we go again. Did you see it? A story. Aren't people bored? No, I just see it again. I was told that was happening. I was told a week ago. They said, you know, they're trying to start a rumor. It's disinformation.
How much of this interference campaign is social media driven, and is there more to it than just that?
I wish I could say more about that, Chuck. But what I will say, what's interesting about what you just played with Senator Sanders, and all due respect, he's running a hell of a campaign. He's racking up delegates right now. But think about what's happening. If Donald Trump perceives that Senator Sanders is his best general election opponent, and the Russians, according to what Sanders just said, are attempting to help Senator Sanders, that means that the president and the Russians are aligned in who they want the president's opponent to be upcoming in the fall. And so there's a lot of questions for the president as to what does he know about the Russians' intent, whether it's from our own intelligence officials or from the Russians about what they're trying to do to get him a general election opponent that he believes would be best served for a victory for him.
Did you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
Trump thinks he's unelectable because he's a democratic socialist. Why do the Russians want him?
The Russians want him because they think that Trump can beat him. I mean, I think that's what it boils down to. And it's the challenge for Bernie Sanders, and I've always thought this, is he's got to convince people that, look, don't be fooled by this. This whole don't throw me in that briar patch thing that the Republicans are doing. I can still win this. They're afraid of me. That is what he's going to have to convince the public.
What I say to Mr. Putin, if elected president, trust me, you are not going to be interfering in American elections.
Senator, when were you briefed on this?
I'm guessing about a month ago.
Bernie Sanders, according to the Washington Post and the U.S. intelligence officials, did know the Russians were working to help him. And then you get to how he responds, directly condemning the person in charge, Putin, not freaking out at the Americans who briefed him. And that's really the most straightforward way I can put it, because recall the president's reaction when he learned an intelligence official had told members of Congress, Senator Sanders is one of them potentially, that the Russians were trying to help Donald Trump. The president didn't condemn Putin. He didn't speak carefully like we just showed you. He just apparently, allegedly, reportedly, whatever you want to call it, went to punish the person who told him the facts he didn't like, pushing out the person in charge of national intelligence, Joseph Maguire. Now, his term was about to expire because he's in this acting role, but he'd reportedly been under consideration to be in that job permanently.
Is it true that in general, Republicans benefited more and do benefit more from Russian interference than Democrats?
Well, they certainly did in the year 2016 when the Russians' effort was to elect President Trump and the down ballot benefit of that. But listen, we have to be honest with ourselves, Joy, about this as well. The Russians also take it as an important objective to divide us and to sow discontent and disunity.
In a written statement today condemning the Russian attempt to help the Sanders campaign, Senator Bernie Sanders said, in 2016, Russia used internet propaganda to sow division in our country, and my understanding is that they are doing it again in 2020. Some of the ugly stuff on the internet attributed to our campaign may well not be coming from real supporters.
And we might also wonder whether there are some Russian provocateurs that's acting like the Bernie bros.
Yes.
I mean, we don't know where the Russian involvement begins and ends, and I think that he loses nothing and gains a lot. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders by just unequivocally denouncing that, just like he just did with Russia. I think he set a real contrast with Donald Trump.
He has a vested interest in not allowing his movement to be co-opted by these Russian actors, so it now makes sense for him to step in.
That's right.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.